Hi, I'm Danny Bakewell Jr., and I'm your host of the Black Money Matters podcast, sponsored by Chase. Today we're talking about how mortgage relief helps homeowners recovering from the wildfires experienced in Altadena and the Palisades. And to talk about Chase's role in mortgage relief, we have our special guest, Cornell Hunter, who is the head of community home lending here in Los Angeles. Hello, everyone. I'm Danny Bakewell Jr., Executive Editor of the Los Angeles Sentinel, and we're here today with a special edition of Black Money Matters. We are talking about the wildfires and the recovery process. And with us is Cornell from Chase Bank. So how you doing, Cornell? Why don't you introduce yourself to our podcast nation?
Thank you, Danny. And first of all, thank you so much, and thank the Los Angeles Sentinel for having Chase here representing the discussion around the disasters. I'm Cornell Hunter. I'm the lending manager responsible in Southern California for a few counties, including Los Angeles County, and I'm very happy to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure. We were talking before we started taping that, the wildfires are very personal. They're personal for me. I was affected. My family's been affected by it. But so many families in the Altadena and the Palisades area have been affected by these fires. And we really thought it was important because Chase has played such an integral part in this stepping up to the needs of the community, being one of the early responders. I think I saw where you guys were offering mortgage assistance long before any of the other banks that I saw stepped up. And that really should be commended, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So let's just get to it and talk about the wildfires.
Excellent.
With the wildfires in California, an unprecedented loss of personal property that many families face, what options do homeowners have during this period?
Well, Danny, that's an excellent question. And the fact is homeowners have a lot of options, but probably the primary one that homeowners would need to be focused on is forbearance. That's an opportunity where they get to forego their mortgage payment while they're focused on more important things like where they're going to live, et cetera. So forbearance is probably the primary option.
I personally have a mortgage with Chase, and when the fires first happened, I had to reach out for forbearance, and I found out that it was very easy for the initial sign up, and I appreciate that because you're right. You're trying to figure out where you're going to live. You don't know what condition your home's in, all of these different things that are going through your mind. And it's like, okay, how do we navigate
exactly
this? So, explain to people maybe in a little more detail what forbearance is. I know there's different options as you go through it, but it's a critical part that people need to be able to take advantage of, whether they're with Chase or even with another bank.
Well, you're absolutely right, Danny. Forbearance varies between banks, so probably the most important thing is to get in touch with your bank.
Forbearance is the opportunity to pause monthly payments that might be due now. Forbearance availability is really dependent on the rules of the insurer and the investor.
Well, when you have forbearance, what happens? I mean, because the payments don't go away.
Right.
Payments don't disappear. You don't get, it's mortgage. I don't want to call it mortgage relief. It's kind of mortgage freedom for a little while, and then you kind of ante back up. So, when does forbearance end, and what should people do and keep in mind when they get their forbearance or request a forbearance?
Right. At Chase, we do it in 3-month increments. So you'll have no payments due for 3 months because you've got plenty of stuff to worry about. If, for whatever reason, the issue is not resolved and you need forbearance again, then again, it's every 3 months. To get started on it, if it's your own lender, you would just give your lender a call. If you do happen to have your loan with Chase, there's an 800 number. It's 800-254-7713, and somebody will pick up the phone and help you out. Hugely important there is to understand what your options are in the beginning. So you want to get in touch with your lender, whoever that lender might be, and ask them. Probably the key words might be, I'm looking for disaster relief and forbearance, right. And they'll understand what that is.
Well, look, that's great. And I'll tell you, I was talking to the local assemblyman in the Pasadena, Altadena area recently. And, again, everybody's kind of following Chase's lead because he told me that they're looking at passing legislation to make all mortgage lenders give a year But you guys didn't need legislation to do what was right, and that should be appreciated and acknowledged by the community and by your clients in particular, because it helps to have a partner in this disaster recovery like a Chase. And that's it. What are some other resources in distress, in under these times of distress that people can talk to about with their bankers and their loan and lending institution?
Well, thanks for that acknowledgement. And yeah, Chase is typically going to be in the forefront where it comes to doing what's best for our community, because we live here too. There are other options, including money that we have donated, as an example, to larger organizations. I think we just gave $2 million to relief organizations such as the Red Cross and the United Way, California Community. And I think if folks are in need of those other kinds of resources, they should probably reach out to United Way or Red Cross or one of those to see what additional resources are available for them.
Right. Well, look, we thank you guys for continuing to kind of lead the way. But Chase is a lending institution, but they're also a huge employer, and you had a lot of employees and people that you work with who are also affected by the fire. So what did Chase do, not only to be responsive to their customers, but their employees who were affected in this situation?
And I know you were affected as well,
yeah.
So it's a personal question, and I appreciate that. And yeah, Chase tends to step out. I was talking to one of my peers just a few days ago, and she was sharing something that Chase did for her that I didn't know Chase did, and Chase does a lot. But apparently, she had gotten a check for the period of time that she was in a hotel. She didn't ask for it. She wasn't looking for it. But somehow Chase understood the dilemma that she was in, probably from one of her executives, and sent her a check. It's that kind of thing internally at Chase that makes us proud to work for the company. And I think it's that community sense that matters for the communities that we're in.
On a personal note, how long have you been with Chase? What's your experience?
Been with Chase for 4 years. I've been in the industry since I got out of the Marine Corps in '76, so it's been a long, long time.
Right.
Always doing home lending primarily.
Okay. And look, the road to recovery is going to be long, and that's one of the things that we talk about. We appreciate Chase's support and all of the efforts that we do. But you're also going to find people for the first time in their lives are going to, I'm going to just call it cash rich. In some cases, this fire has allowed them to have access to kind of equity in out of their home. Some people are going to have prices in Altadena. Every house is over $1 million. So now all of a sudden they're going to have cash, $1 million that they are going to be able to apply to buy a new home or rebuild their home. What does Chase recommend and to do with that? Because people are going to have to be disciplined with these dollars that they get early on while they navigate through the rebuilding process. I think all the laws haven't really come out yet. So what would you suggest to anyone who's got these big insurance checks, but that check's got to get your house back up and running, and it's probably going to be a year before you're got a permit and can
Well, probably the checks for getting the homes rebuilt are going to be payable to both the client as well as Chase. If they're coming from the insurance company, they still have a mortgage. So there'll be some mitigation factors going on there. But they'll also probably get checks for their household goods, right? And generally, those are pretty large as well.
Yeah.
The most important thing: sit down with your banker, open an account, and realize that that money is for a purpose, right? It's not for Vegas. It's not for some of the things that you might feel like you need relief from.
Right.
So just be prudent. Just be prudent.
Yeah, and we talk about we've talked about it with Black Money Matters previously that people often feel like I don't have enough money to have a banker. They don't necessarily feel that they got enough dollars where they have a personal banker. I know, just talking to all the people at Chase, that it's not really about the size of your deposit or your balance or anything like that. So, I'm trying to make people comfortable with walking into the branch and and getting a banker. And,
Right.
Grabbing, say, look, hey, Cornell, can I talk
Right,
to you for a
right.
minute? And establishing that relationship. And this is going to be that time.
It is, and you and I, to your point, have a great experience in working with our local bankers, and most people don't. Most people are ATM, and that's the extent of their banker relationship. But you can open the door, and you should open the door, and you should go in and introduce yourself to the bank manager. You will find Chase's bank managers and many other bank managers to be hugely friendly. They want you to come into the branch. You'll sit down with a banker, whether that's a private banker or a normal relationship banker, and they're tasked with and familiar and licensed in many cases to share with you different kinds of investment strategies and deposit opportunities and instruments. And just spend some time chatting with them and sharing with them what your goals are, what you've been through, and you'll find them to be hugely helpful.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if you get your, insurance is paying right now in kind of 3 chunks. And, I know it unfortunately far too well, but, they're paying your content. And that can be a pretty nice check. In most cases, it's about $100,000 or more just for your content. And second is what they call
living expense.
Living expenses or fair market rental value. So they look at what would it cost to put you in a home for 2 years that's similar to the house that you lost. They paying it in 6-month intervals. So that's probably $50,000. And then there's your dwelling, which is another big check, which usually is tied to your mortgage, and that's a joint check. But people are going to have some cash in many cases, for the first time in their life. They're going to have some big cash. And one of the things that we've been talking about for our recovery and rebuild and recovery conference is really talking to people about the importance of saving those dollars, putting them away, letting it work, letting your money work for you. And this is the first time that people are going to have that opportunity.
Well, Danny, that's one of the huge advantages of your program, Black Money Matters at the Sentinel, because you're putting information out there which is hugely important for people to know. You're right. They're coming into huge amounts of cash for the first time. And the tendency might be to think, okay, this is going to happen every month, or this is going to happen, right? And then before you know it, it's gone.
Right.
And what have you realized as a result of it? So stop in a Chase Bank branch or a branch, sit down with a money manager, whether that's a relationship banker or the branch manager themselves. They will be hugely helpful for you.
Well, thank you. I know that I had heard that a number of Chase executives toured both the Altadena area and the Palisades area. Did you get a chance, or have you?
I haven't gone yet. I did do a couple of charity events near the area, but I haven't gone to the area. I used to get my hair cut there when I had hair back in the day.
Well, it's one of these things, and I would tell you, living and growing up in Altadena area, and I haven't been in the Palisades yet, although I do know a number of people who have been affected by it. Probably one that I know Chase has worked with a lot is Martin Muoto, who is Martin is the president of SOLA, which SOLA is an affordable housing developer. They own the Beehive and a number of organizations here. And Martin lost his home in the Palisades. I reached out to him just to tell him he was in my thoughts and prayers, and just really a good guy. But both in the Altadena area and in the Palisades, pictures really can't explain it. Pictures can't explain the devastation that has occurred to an entire community. And I really applaud Chase for just stepping up and being a leader, not only as a financial institution, but as a community business. I mean, I think the thing that always impressed me with Chase is that you guys are willing to get your hands dirty. I've heard a lot of things your employees did. And I know you said you volunteered at a couple of different things. What were those things like? What were
one of them was, and you're right. Chase is proudly a part of a community. One of the community events I did was in L.A., in North Hills, I think it was, and it was a food giveaway. Okay. And so we started in the morning. The community group had already boxed up all of the food, and they knew roughly how many cars were going to come by. But when I was driving through the neighborhood, there was this line of cars. I didn't really understand that they were already lined up, and it turns out that they line up at like 4 in the morning. The line starts, and there were probably 16 or 17 Chase Bank staff there, and we were handing out the boxes. People would drive through and open up their trunks, and we'd put the boxes in their trunks, and it was just boxes of fresh food. I was amazed, I always am, at just how much food is available in those giveaways.
It sounds a little crazy, but I'm going to say it just because it's the first thing that popped in my head, that having an experience like that really is something we learned and trained through COVID. That's how we gave away food during COVID, is because you couldn't have this interaction.
Right.
So it's kind of like pop your trunk, you got to buy, right. You got to box food, stick it in there, close the trunk, see you later. Right. So even the next disaster is really kind of trained off the past disaster, and that I guess that's a fortunate or unfortunate reality of life in today's world.
It is. It's less intimate than others. I did a serving line at it was a Midnight Mission on 6th and San Pedro,
right.
And that was a lot more intimate, a lot more. You're closer to the folks than need.
More interactive, I guess.
Much more interactive.
Yeah, just kind of in wrapping up, I mean, one of the things that I think about when I think about Chase is just, you're willing for the long haul. And I think it's important to really explain to people that the recovery of the Palisades, the recovery of Altadena is going to be a long haul. And around here, we've divided it into 3 pieces. There's, first, there's kind of the initial
shock, perhaps.
Yeah, initial shock, but it's displacement. It's displacement. You lost your home. You needed to find shelter and food and clothing and all those things from displacement. And we're starting to come out of that. People, hopefully most people have kind of found a place. Might not be in Altadena. You might find yourself far away. I talked to somebody today, said, I'm in New York with my brother. I came and I'm staying with him. But the next part is going to be recovery. It's getting your insurance checks, and what am I now supposed to do? What are my next steps? And there's less resources available for the recovery process. Displacement. Everybody open the FEMA center and run and you do all these things.
There'll be a music concert to raise
and now
funds.
Everybody's talking about FEMA center is going to close and this and so, okay, now who's going to be here to hold my hand? And I think Chase probably will be. And then lastly, there's the rebuild. And that's going to be a different process in and of itself, because people are going to need to refinance. They're going to pay off their mortgage and then have to get a loan. And I see Chase playing such a significant part. Do you guys had any conversation about your plans and your vision for the rebuild and recover, or the recovery and rebuild process?
So to your point on the 3 stages, and they're probably even more if you talk to a local psychiatrist, right? But I think what's most important in that, Danny, is that Chase sees itself as a part of the community, and when you're a part of the community, you're there for the long haul. Chase absolutely intends to be there for the long haul. The forbearance process might last for 12 months. There may be opportunities to discuss what you might need to do with your mortgage even after that 12 months. Chase will be there for you.
Thank you. So if there's one thing that you want residents of LA to know about Chase, what would that be?
That we're wonderful people. We're part of the community. If you're experiencing anything with regard to the tragedy of losing your home, first, contact Chase. We want to talk with you. We want to discuss forbearance. We want to see what we can do to help. But primarily, just think of us as part of the community. So whether you have never walked into a Chase Bank branch before, walk in now. Ask for the branch manager. Ask for a relationship banker. We absolutely can help.
Well, thank you. Again, Chase does so much in this community, and they have been there all the way. I'm a big believer in the Chase team. I'm a big believer and big fan of you, and I just thank you for this opportunity to share your insight and wisdom with our readers, our viewers, and we look forward to a long and lasting relationship.
Well, you've been doing this for 92 years, so it's our pleasure to be associated with you in this in this opportunity.
Well, thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks. Thanks, Danny.
Thank you for tuning into the Black Money Matters podcast. Tell us what financial topics you'd like us to cover in our next episodes. You can follow us on social media platforms at LA Sentinel News.